Welcome to the Reeldemers, where we champion the B-sides, the offbeat, and the overlooked. We've worked in and around Hollywood, so we know just how hard it is to get a movie made. This is our space to celebrate some cinematic misfits that we hope you'll enjoy as much as we do. Today we're back with another Razzie Reeldemption. This is where we showcase a film that was featured at the Razzies, and we'll see if it was worth all the disdain, or maybe if it was a secret diamond in the rough. Today's film garnered 5 nominations at the 1986 Golden Raspberry Awards. Worst Screenplay, Worst Actress, Worst Director, Worst Picture, and Worst New Star. Get ready to hit the streets of New York and watch out for exploding cars as we dive into Year of the Dragon. I'm one of your hosts, Greg Bellavia, and I'm here with
Andre Sanglati.
Today is the story of someone who was desperately in need of some Reeldemers. Michael Cimino. His rise with the Deer Hunter and fall with Heaven's Gate is well documented and part of Hollywood history. It's one of the great cinematic cases of someone flying too close to the sun, and we don't really feel like Heaven's Gate needs Reeldemers. It has a passionate cult following, it's got a Criterion release, and Andreas, do people even think it's bad anymore?
I don't know. I feel like you said it yourself. It doesn't need any redeeming.
Yeah, I'm with you. And then bloated. Sure, messy perhaps, but there's a lot of good stuff in there. And I think even if someone in the year 2025 comes out and says it's bad, I think you'd say it's valiantly bad. It's not like Cimino shuffled off into obscurity from there. Here he is. The year is 1985, 5 years later. He's working on a big budget. It's a crime flick. He's got some hot talent. Andreas, had you seen or heard Year of the Dragon before today's experiment?
No. I honestly did not even know this movie existed.
And ladies and gentlemen, that's why we're covering it. So the film was based on a 1981 novel by Robert Daley. Production had an approximate start date, so when Cimino came in, there was a rush to complete the script. So he called in Oliver Stone. Cimino had seen a draft of Platoon and was impressed by it and thought Stone would be comfortable with the material. As part of this collaboration, Dino De Laurentiis, the producer on this film, tried to get Platoon off the ground and was attached for a while before that film finally ended up with a different production company. They brought in Mickey Rourke, coming in hot off the Pope of Greenwich Village, and Cimino had worked with them on Heaven's Gate, so big star. John Lone, not as well known, but made a splash off Broadway, and this was their second leading role in a film behind playing the Iceman in Iceman, a drama about an unfrozen caveman. Quick sidebar, I enjoy the early 80s fascination with prehistoric culture. We have Iceman, Quest of Fire, and Clan of the Cave Bear. What was happening in the early 80s?
People just wanted to hang out with cavemen.
Well, hey, guilty. We need to bring that back.
Hey, I wanted to in the 90s when I saw Encino Man, so...
Andreas has been trying to get that Encino Man reboot off the ground for years.
I would do that tomorrow, my friend. I love that movie.
So in addition to those gentlemen, they also brought in supermodel Ariane to play the female lead. Who is Ariane? I'm sure we'll get into that more as we go. So Year of the Dragon came in on time and budget, which is saying something after Heaven's Gate had spiraled so horribly out of control. But while Cimino needed a great movie that was a financial hit, instead he came out with an interesting movie that was not. So the slide continued. What even is it? What is Year of the Dragon? Officer Stanley White, the most decorated cop in New York, as he will tell you, is put in charge of Chinatown and wrangling the triads, the Chinese mafia. He finds himself up against a young and cunning gangster, Joey Tai, and alienating everyone around him as he plays out his own personal war, a chance to run back Vietnam. There's a lot there. There's a lot there. All right. I had seen this before, and knowing that it was nominated for so many Razzies, 5 Razzies in 86, I thought this would be a fascinating one to talk about because I feel like nobody talks about this movie aside from Quentin Tarantino, who's a big fan. Since I have a history and you're coming in cold, I'd love to get your gut reaction.
You know what, Greg? This movie's frustrating because the elements for a great crime epic are there. And I'm sure we'll get more into it in our Reeldemtion remake category, but there's so many really, really great scenes and then some that just aren't as successful. And unfortunately, the less successful ones bring this film down quite a bit. There's 2 big issues for me with the film. Number 1, there's a lot of telling, not showing. Just casually drop moments. And one of the biggest rules in writing is show, don't tell. And this film does the opposite. Here's some quick examples. There's a moment where Joey, who's the main antagonist, and Stanley are squaring off in Joey's office. Joey's feeling him out, trying to bribe him off, and Stanley just says, rumor has it that it was your hand that was on the knife that killed him, meaning Joey's boss. Where did that come from? We didn't see Stanley learn that. This was the first time he's ever mentioned that. So that is a big plot point that he just casually mentions. The other moment I just want to highlight is where Stanley and his team are using Tracy's apartment as an HQ, right?
Okay, all right. Let's take a bit of that. Please explain who is Tracy and what is this apartment? Because I think these are two important
okay,
features.
So Tracy's a reporter who covers Chinatown. And I'll get more into her in a second. Let me just tell this moment because she's a part of my second issue with this film. So when we see that Stanley's using her apartment as an HQ, he's on the phone and he yells into the phone, "I got the new lady district attorney behind me on this thing." Again, seems like a big plot point just casually dropped that he now has full support, because for most of the film, nobody on the police force or anywhere on that side of the law was supporting him in anything he wanted to do. And then my second biggest issue is the way the women are treated in this film. His wife, Connie, who Greg, I honestly thought she was his sister at first, because the way he just came into the house and started talking, there is zero chemistry between them.
But okay, all right, I'm okay. I hear you on that.
So until they started talking about their relationship, I was like, I guess they're together. But the problem with Connie is that she only exists in this film to die. That's it. He has no love for her. She's basically an annoyance, and then she's brutally killed. The second female lead is Tracy, who we already mentioned, the reporter. And I'll just say it, not the strongest actress in the world, but her character is problematic in a lot of ways. I like the angle of using the press as a tool to bring awareness and also goad the gangsters a little, right? But she's constantly treated like shit, literally tells Stanley out of nowhere, she says, "I love you," and then casually dropping that she was raped, again, out of nowhere by some Chinese gangsters. Rape is a big deal, and the way the film uses it as a small little plot point to change Stanley's mood towards her is kind of infuriating. Those are my biggest issues, but even with those, I do think you could make an epic crime saga out of this, and there are a lot of great moments in this film.
Well, I'll say, and I think that's all fair. I couldn't argue with anything you said right there. I would say I'm a fan of this film. I think it's messy. I think it's got a lot of Cimino isms all over it. You can tell he made this. I think some of the stuff, and again, we can save it for the remake section, I think dusting this off and giving it a fresh coat of paint, there's a lot here to work with, but I do enjoy this. I think this is the definition of a glass half full movie. And I love to address the elephant in the room. I think Ariane, she was a supermodel, a very successful supermodel, and this was her first major acting assignment. And let's be honest here, Greg Bellavia, not a good actor. I've tried. Greg Bellavia, not a good supermodel. I haven't tried, but I'm going to go ahead and guess I'm not great at that.
We'll let our listeners weigh in. No, I'm just kidding.
But look, they were very successful, and not everybody's great at something else. They are given not just a role in this film, a huge role in this film, and not just a huge role in this film, a kind of underwritten huge role in this film. So as Andreas just said, this character ends up becoming the mistress of the main cop, and it is kind of out of nowhere. Like, they've been hooking up, but just she has to drop "I love you." She's attacked late in the film. She has to deal with like the emotions and the PTSD of that attack. There's a lot happening on that. That would be tough for any actress to tackle, let alone somebody who's not as experienced. So I think they were, no offense, set up to fail here. So a lot of people will rightfully look. She was up for Worst Actress and Worst New Star. So of the 5 things this movie was up for, 2 of them are her. So I think that is reflected in the history of this film, and that's tough. And I do feel bad, but it's also, there is a reason people talk about that point. That is a tough spot. The other part is Stanley White is an asshole. The lead of this movie is a jerk. Now, I don't mind that so much. The point of the film is he's abrasive. The whole point of the film is here's a guy put in a position of power who's using it to try and get over his own personal demons. And Everybody's calling him out on that. His wife's calling him out on that. His best friend on the force is calling him out on that. The mistress is calling him out on that. So it's not like that's a secret, but you've got an asshole and an actress who's maybe not the most experienced in the world, and they have to have a scene together. So it's hard to hang on to something exactly when you're not really rooting for anybody. And again, it's interesting. I enjoy, look, Mickey Rourke, warts and all, fascinating career. In the 80s, a very interesting actor. And like, you know, what to get to put him in here. Fun fact, do you know the two other people they were thinking for the Stanley White role?
I don't know.
Jeff Bridges.
Ooh.
I don't know if I can see it. I don't think he's as abrasive as he would need to get here.
No, I might be able to see. I mean, it wouldn't be the same, but I could kind of see it because he would bring, with how abrasive Rourke is in the role, I think Bridges would bring a little bit more. Obviously, he would bring a little bit more softness to it that I think I honestly think the role needed.
Okay, I'll take this in a different direction. I think this character needs to be older, and they're trying to make him look older. They like his hair, they've dyed his hair a little bit. Yeah. And like, here's supposed to be this Vietnam vet who's running it back. I think he should have been 10 years older to kind of sell that. The other actor up for it, Nick Nolte. Ooh. And I think he would have been perfect for this because you need somebody who's charismatic and gruff and has this instant history. I think you slap him in this role, I instantly buy, oh yeah, that's a guy who's seen stuff.
You do. You need gruff with a capital G. For sure. And I just want to go back and say, you know, with you saying that she was set up to fail, I 100% agree with that because acting's not easy. You know, people may think it's easy. It's not. So I'm willing to give a little leeway, especially, you know, knowing it's her first role. But like you said, it's a massive role with a lot of screen time, but the character's just so underwritten that it's unfortunate.
And I think, okay, well, we'll save what coulda, shoulda, woulda for later. Let's deal with what it is right now. Yeah. And here's the thing. I've had a friend who's a reporter. I liked her on the street when she's doing like her newspaper reporter. That was fine. It's when it's like a dicey romantic relationship and then increasing danger. It's just too much. I don't think this was a totally 100% bad performance. As a supporting role with a little, you know, just if she was just a supporting character in the background, that would have been fine. But the more you're asking them to do with every passing 10 minutes, that's where you get into trouble.
It's a tough ask. It's definitely a tough ask.
But somebody who is doing a good job is John Lone as Joey Tai, who I think is electric in this movie.
Awesome. Oh, we'll be talking more about him. Don't you worry.
Yeah. So I know, again, with it being a glass half full movie, there is a lot to kind of like pick apart or stare at or whatever. Like a lot of this movie is just you hanging out with Mickey Rourke acting like a dick. And like how much, again, like I was thinking about going into this. If a movie is gory, that doesn't mean it's good or bad. It's just a facet of the movie is it's gory. If the movie's highly sexual, there's a lot of nudity. It could be a good movie. It could be a bad movie. That's part of it. Those could turn an audience off. If somebody's like, I don't want to watch a gory movie. I don't want to watch something chock full of nudity. That could be a taste thing. This is a crime film that has racist characters that deals with racism. Yeah. So a lot of the film is people throwing slurs around left and right and that type of thing. I do not find this to be a racist film. I do not think the point of the film is to be racist against the Chinese community. But if somebody does not want to spend 2+ hours with unpleasant characters throwing racial slurs around, I also understand why maybe that wasn't like, oh man, this big commercial blockbuster hit. And not that we should always be trying to make commercial stuff, but it's no secret why maybe this didn't connect with a wide audience. At least like everybody calls him a jerk. Yeah. Everybody calls him a jerk. I mean, that's one thing I like, especially on this rewatch. Like there is no, from villains to other protagonists, like everybody's kind of anti-Stanley. And I'm somebody who's drawn to, I like movies that deal with obsession. I like people that get drawn into stuff. I do not like passive characters. I know there's plenty of literary, I know there's plenty of cinematic stuff that has passive characters. I'm never attracted to that. So a war vet who's in a position where they're working their personal demons out, that's interesting to me. I like that. You had touched on earlier, there's moments where the movie will slow down and just start explaining Chinese history. Well, the Chinese history, and it's just like, what is that? Now, again, that softens the racism. Okay, that's good. I mean, I guess I'm glad there's something there to kind of counterbalance it. Yeah. But I wish that was shown or a little bit more eloquent. There's 2 points where the movie stops and starts to explain Chinese history in the States to you.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's bad, but it's in how it's presented in the film, it comes off very clunky.
It's very clunky. It's like obvious it is exposition for the audience, as opposed to this is what this character would say right now in this moment. But I kind of laughed a little bit. There was a moment Stanley is in the restaurant with Tracy, and she sees that he has a book in front of him, and the title is just Chinese things, and she says, "I'm impressed," and I couldn't tell if she was being sarcastic or not.
I took that as earnest, but then again, maybe that's an acting choice. I don't know.
I don't know.
Well, it's funny because Tarantino said the 5 crime films of the 80s that got it right. This is according to Quentin Tarantino. Your mileage may vary. Scarface, To Live and Die in L.A., Manhunter, 8 Million Ways to Die, and Year of the Dragon.
Oh, okay.
Interesting. So To Live and Die in L.A. and Manhunter share William Peterson as lead actor and Michael Mann and a heavy Michael Mann influence. Okay.
Yeah.
Scarface, 8 Million Ways to Die, and Year of the Dragon have what in common?
Oliver Stone.
Oliver Stone, baby. So the history of a minority having a crime influence on the States totally comes across in Scarface. Does not come across. You know what I mean? So it's like, I can tell the same screenwriter worked on both the movie. And maybe it's because this one was under the gun. Maybe that one was, I'm not sure. But there's something about Scarface where you're like, okay, also that movie's longer. So maybe you just have more time to like kind of luxuriate and everything else that's happening. This one feels like it is stopping dead in its tracks to like, hey, by the way, I got to tell you about this fact, and then like move on to the next.
You know, you bring up a good point, because I do wonder if they were just under such crazy time constraints that they weren't able to get all that exposition shown, so that they did have to tell it. It's still unfortunate because it just would have made for such a fleshed out film.
But what I do like is like, I like the what's kicking it off, this guy's personal vendetta. This thing's chock full of like crazy shootouts. A lot of the movie's handed over to its villain, Joey Tai, an up-and-comer. And I think what both the Joey Tai character and the Stanley White character, as played by Mickey Rourke, represent is guys who are kind of bucking this system. There's a system in place where, yes, there are triads in Chinatown. Yes, crime exists in Chinatown. But it's kind of like, as long as they don't cause too much trouble, the New York police aren't going to look too much into it. So there's essentially a truce that you can get away with a little bit of crime as long as you're not going crazy. And Mickey Rourke wants to wipe out crime completely. So his methods are much more aggressive. And Joey Tai wants to do a power play. He doesn't just want to settle for, hey, we got this nice arrangement. He wants to move up in the world. And on both sides, you have these guys bucking the system. And on both sides, you have guys who neither one of their support systems in place think they're doing the right thing. I think that's interesting. I think you could have played up more of that. They're two sides of the same coin, but I like that it's there, and they're definitely trying to go for that, whether or not they can actually get there 100% by the end.
And that's where a lot of my frustration came, because like I said, the elements to do that are there. It's not as successful with that. I think they really did want to do that to show that they're two, like you said, two people on the same coin, but it didn't work for me. I really wanted it to.
Now, we're going to jump into kind of like what we would want to see in a remake and some other our categories. I think we can get into more stuff that I view as some of the stronger aspects of it. But I do want to talk about this 86 Razzies because it's interesting. The reason, the whole point we're talking about, Year of the Dragon is it's kind of been lost to time. Like people, even if Heaven's Gate is quote unquote terrible, people talk about it. It's this legendary boondoggle. Whereas not a lot of people in 2025 are talking about Year of the Dragon. Yes, it was nominated for 5, but the big tagline of the 86 Razzies, Sylvester Stallone, because they went in guns blazing on Rocky IV and Rambo First Blood Part 2. And those two cleaned up in the award category.
It's crazy to me. That's so crazy.
Now, it's funny because at first glance, it's like, oh my gosh, you don't have anything better to do than to nominate Rocky IV for like worst picture. But then taking a step back, isn't it interesting? Rocky and First Blood, gritty, realistic character studies. Rocky IV and Rambo, we're going to take those characters and turn them into Cold War fairy tales.
I mean, yeah.
So I think it's been decades. We're used to it. Look, I love Rocky IV.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm a huge fan.
Of course.
I can get if maybe at the time you were like, what the hell happened? So it's like, I know it's like, I do not think in any way, shape, or form Rocky 4 is a bad movie, but I think the sheer, you've morphed it into this patriotic, jingoistic thing.
Yeah, I
can
wonder
see how that could bug somebody. And also, if I had a nickel for every movie at that Razzies which featured a character who got to have a Vietnam rematch, I'd have 2 nickels, but that's still kind of strange, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, before we jump into our categories, I'm just going through my notes for a couple random things that don't really fit anywhere else. Tracy's apartment, gorgeous, fantastic.
I will be talking about that in a category. I can let you know.
Ooh, okay, now for the listener at home, Tracy's apartment has an elevator leading up to it. It's one of those apartments. Would you want the elevator apartment or not?
No.
I think they seem like a pain in the butt.
No, they seem like a pain in the butt, and I don't trust that security. If there was, because as soon as the door opens, you're in the apartment. I would want like at least another gate or something there.
Cool apartment, could do without the elevator part. Okay.
Well, I mean, on the other side though, having your own elevator is pretty nice.
That is pretty. I just want the option of stairs. I could take. Yeah. Okay. Rizzo, mustached cop who's like Mickey Rourke's partner, gets shot in the bathroom. Is he dead?
No, he was there at the docks. When he goes to talk,
yeah,
when he goes to talk to the customs official, he's behind him, hobbling with a cane, holding his stomach.
All right, that makes me feel a little better because I didn't remember seeing him in the last scene. All right,
and I remember that because I specifically had that reaction of, "Oh, I guess he's alive." Because that was a brutal
pulled through from getting shot in the stomach.
I mean, that was a brutal gunshot, my friend. To me, he was a goner, but when he showed up hobbling next to him at the docks, I was like, "Oh, okay, I guess he's alive."
Why was that when he gets shot? He's not like, it's more like an inconvenience. It's like, oh, like, damn, I got shot in the stomach versus like really concerned he got shot in the stomach. So Rizzo's tough, man.
He's tough, dude. Yeah, he just wants to eat sandwiches and then hobble on his cane.
I like it's Stanley White. Yes, that's so on the nose because he's a racist cop. But they go out of their way to say that he has changed it because it was originally a Polish last name. In a movie that maybe doesn't have our favorite writing, I do like that little bit of business. I think that sums up that character well. He's ashamed of something that he's attacking like other people for. I think as a reaping what you've sowed delivery system, this movie succeeds. This guy calls out a fight with the triads and they rain hell down on him during the second half of this movie. That's what I like about it. It's just, I think some of the scenes, the dialogue maybe gets a little rough or just like how long it okay, so John Lone, very charismatic in here. And like, I don't know. I don't want to go running to racism, but people loved him in Iceman. He's in this. He's a standout. I think he was up for a Golden Globe. He's in The Last Emperor. He's in, M. Butterfly. Why didn't this guy have an even bigger career? Like he's fantastic here.
I don't know. I looked him up. I was expecting a massive list of credits on IMDb, and it's not a long list.
He's the villain, and he does nefarious things. At one point, he sends in some of his, underlings to do the shooting, and they get injured, and he goes to visit them. They're pretty shot up, and he's like, "Can you walk?" And one of them gets up, and he cannot walk very well, and he's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, you guys are doing great." And then basically he gives the signal to like have him killed. That's pretty cold-blooded, but you never hate this character, even though he's doing like underhanded things. And compared to Stanley, he seems positively like a nice guy. So that's another like interesting
And I love that moment because in that moment when he visits the shooters in the apartment, that's the moment you realize, oh, he's the one that's overseeing all the attacks on his own families. And that to me is such a great little twist that I wasn't expecting.
So he's kind of got this plan. I need to knock out like kind of the heads of this gang so I can take over. I need to go tell the Italians to go to hell because they have a deal going with like the mafia. I need to like push the cops off my back. And I need to go to the supplier in Asia to kind of get our heroin deal like settled. What did you think of his excursion overseas?
I loved it. It added such an epic moment to this film that you're expecting just to take place in Chinatown, but it adds a scope to it that it was really cool. The way it was shot, it's gorgeous. The way he enters the village on a donkey, and there's all these soldiers and villagers and even, soldiers in camouflage. It was so cool. I honestly really, really liked it. It made me think of Ridley Scott's American Gangster.
Ooh, yeah. All right, I have a drinking game.
Oh, Okay.
Every time Stanley White fiddles with his hat, there's a lot of hat acting.
There is. There
He'll
is.
walk into the room with the hat. He'll set the hat down. He'll pick the hat up. He's gesturing with the hat. And I had thought that the first time I watched this, and I hadn't thought about it in a while. And the second I saw him wearing the fedora, I'm like, hat acting. And so that came roaring back.
Take a shot.
Him using spare ribs in like a derogatory way. That's like his go-to line for like the first half hour is bringing that up. So I think it'll be good. It'll be good and toasty if you do the hat acting and that. Finish your drink when you see the amazing exploding car. At one point, there's a shootout and somebody's head gets clean blown off and their car crashes into a wall, and the instant it hits, it explodes into flames, and it's pretty great.
That was pure 80s.
But I think something you had mentioned before was his relationship with the wife. I totally see where you're coming from. I guess that is a dead relationship. So that's Carolyn Cava as his wife Connie. Kind of thankless. I mean, her role, to your point, but her role is to be dissatisfied. The marriage is ending. Every overture he's made to try and make it up to her, like she's hoping they're going to have a child together, but he's putting the job in front of her. She's clearly taking a second place to like his new position here on the force, and she basically kicks him out of the house. But then he goes off and gets a mistress because of it, like immediately. So it's not even really like just his feelings are hurt, and hey, I'll end up with like this younger woman. He goes to confront the wife and like, hey, can we salvage this? And she's basically like, there's nothing to salvage. This is over. So to your point with them not having chemistry, I think that works because it's a relationship and like a free fall. But then before that can even be resolved, that's when the break can happen and she's killed. So on the one hand, the comic book term is fridging. She gets fridged where she gets killed off. But I think she brings a lot of humanity to that role before it happens. I think that just goes to show when you have I hate to say, a good actor or actress, even in a smaller role, they can round it out. And I think she does a good job. And I want to call her out here because I think she could come up later in one of our categories. And I've got that for somebody else. And the other one is Dennis Dunn, the true hero of Big Trouble in Little China, and also featured in Prince of Darkness. He plays a rookie undercover cop here. And again, not a large role. And he has one of the big exposition dumps about Chinese history we were bringing up earlier. But he's such a charismatic dude. I don't mind. Yeah. It's just clunky. You know what I mean? He's doing a fine job. It's the way it's written that's just like, okay, you got to get through this.
Yeah, we'll talk more about him.
Okay. Excellent. Speaking of dragons, the 1986 Razzies had The Last Dragon up for Worst Song for The Last Dragon, which I think is nonsense. I think that song is a lot of fun.
That song is fun.
Oh, there's Undercover Nuns. I just think we should make mention.
Oh my gosh, we absolutely need to talk about that. I love that. That's such a cool little moment.
Because they understand Chinese, whereas a lot of officers on the force would not. These nuns happen to, so they have them listening in on conversations.
Oh, it's such a cool little detail. Sorry, I wanted to go back to when you were talking about Connie, the wife.
Oh, yeah.
I do wonder, because I believe this was based off of a novel, right?
Yeah.
So I do wonder if that was just it feels like it was from, I don't want to say it feels like it was from something else, but it feels like that was probably fleshed out more in the novel, and for me wasn't as successful here. So I honestly feel like you don't even need the Connie character in the film. I kind of like it because he's inadvertently burning everything down. And that's one thing. So I guess I love the trip to Asia, but I don't necessarily feel like I know Joey as well as I don't know what's Joey's, he has a wife. What's his family life look like? Yeah. Is he a good husband? Whatever. This is 2 hours and 15 minutes. I'm not asking you to add more, but I'm almost interested in what a 2.5 hour version of this, 10 more minutes, just to flesh a few more of these things out. Maybe that would have done it. So it's again, guys, I'm sorry to harp on this. It's glass half full. I kind of like the relationships lived in, but to your point, it could be more lived in to make it even more, feel more three-dimensional. Exactly. And I will say, the more we're talking about the film, the more I'm liking it. So that's again, I've seen it twice, and its flaws and all. I get not everything works here. Of the 5 movies that Tarantino, I think we should come up with our own 5 top crime movies of the 80s and see what comes up there. That's a great idea.
Manhunter, Stone Cold classic, To Live and Die in LA. I know we've got differing feelings now, which is a story for another day. But there's movies in there like Scarface, oh my gosh, right? I would not put this up there. I just think this one has a lot going for it while also having flaws. That'd be my kind of review. I
feel like Rourke's character needs to be maybe toned down a little bit. That being said, he's acting the hell out of it, especially in that funeral scene. He was really good in that. But and also being the cocky asshole, he's doing a great job in this film. I just feel the character could add a little bit more softness.
No, I think it's a good point. Like Rourke, love him, hate him. I do think he does a good job in this movie. I think a Nick Nolte, like there's certain actors and actresses where their faces instantly sell you on, like George Clooney in a role is going to give you a certain feeling, you know, like
Yeah.
Samuel L. Jackson in a certain role is going to give you a certain feeling. I think a Nick Nolte in this role, you're going to get a certain feeling. Whereas I feel like Mickey Rourke is acting his butt off in this. You kind of have to like, where are we? Do I like this guy? Do I not like this guy? And look, that's interesting. But in a movie where it's kind of all over the place, not everything gets as much attention as maybe as it should, and also your main female lead, just that's tough.
Yeah.
It's a lot to swallow at once.
But I definitely would say for anyone who hasn't seen it, it's worth watching. It's worth checking out. And it's great. Like even a lot of the action scenes kind of reminded me a little bit of sort of the crime of like Scarface and stuff. Like Oliver Stone flavor is definitely there.
I've seen some people say this is dull. I do not think this is a dull movie. I don't think it's like front to back chaos, but it's like a snowball. At first, there's not much, but by the last half hour, it's just like they're upping the attacks on each other, and there's like some crazy shootouts in this.
I was not bored at all. I will say that. I don't think this is a dull movie. I'm the first to say when a movie is a little dull, and this is not.
All right, so what would be your remake notes? What does the Reeldemer remake of this look like?
This could have been as good as Heat. The elements were there. A motivated cop versus a motivated young Chinese gangster. Stanley needs to be more likable, less cocky, less hot-headed, a little bit more reserved. I do wish they would have tapped into his experiences in Vietnam more, just in terms of how he's reacting to things. Like they say it, but they don't show it. Again, I'm going to be saying that a lot. I also feel like they should make him ambitious in a more quiet way, more calculating. Like he's sick of the old ways that the police have been handling Chinatown and he wants to clean it up. Then juxtapose that with Joey, the ambitious gangster who's sick of the old ways that the businesses has been run and how the crime families are handling Chinatown, and focus on their similarities. And you had brought it up earlier saying that they're trying to make them two sides of the same coin, but you want to really focus on that. Also, the overall idea of grabbing an inexperienced cadet to go undercover is awesome. Like the only reason they need him is because he's Chinese, and you can really explore the differences in culture. But here it is so wasted. I perked up. I was like, wow, they're going to go this route. Like we're going to have a sort of reluctant cadet, inexperienced, but has to go undercover, and we're going to follow his story a little bit. And they hardly show him. And what happens? He's there to die.
I like that because it's the you're gonna get me killed. Like he's worried about it. If it's Stanley trying to play out his own Vietnam, he's sending his own soldier off to die in this conflict, and he dies fucking brutally.
But I like that. I like that moment where he was sort of reluctant to go, doesn't want to do it, but it's also a little bit of, well, that's the job, Yeah. But I was also hoping the film was going to focus more on him. And also, he doesn't look like your typical cop. I was hoping to learn a little bit more of like why he became a cop. And you could sort of go into that drama of it too. One of the other things that confused me a little bit is I would really want to lay out why one gang overseeing things in Chinatown is a bad thing. Like for half the film, it seems like they're taking care of people in Chinatown. There's one shot of a sweatshop, but other than that, we're told what's happening. I would want to see why their grip on Chinatown is hurting anyone, and we don't get that.
I agree with you there. I think that's part of my thing with John Lone. I don't know enough about their workings. Like, okay, yes, there's peace. Yes, there's a truce.
Yeah.
Why is that so horrible for Mickey Rourke? Other than maybe it's just a racist, which is interesting. But I want to know because he's like, there's blood's going to run in the streets. I'm right about that. So he seems convinced it's the super dangerous thing. And until John Lone, I'm not sure it is. So that's a good question. And then why does John Lone want, is it just simply like, I don't want to take a back seat to the mafia pushing us around and I think we've been making more money? Okay, but like he doesn't really come out and say that. And also, how does that change? We don't know anything about him. How would that change his life?
Exactly. And I would want to have that fleshed out. I think you do need to flesh out Stanley's character a little bit more and the similarities with Joey. And look, there's a version of this that could be a lot more dark, where we open on a container of human trafficked people who are dead, just bodies piled in a container that died of suffocation. And that image alone lets you know that someone's up to some bad shit, right? And imagine like that's Stanley's first day on the job as the new captain. Then you could still have the mob boss get killed as an escalation. So now Stanley's in some even more violent territory. You know, Chinatown is a powder keg ready to go off, but you need to have someone in Chinatown who's not a gangster, right? So that's when you could have the reporter character and make her feel like she wants to do good. Because here in this version, she's just a headstrong reporter who wants to get the story. Like, you don't understand any of her motivation beyond that. It doesn't seem like she's interested in anything else. So you could have him with his allies, the undercover cop and the reporter, and just work to make Chinatown safe again that way. And then playing off of Joey and his work. And obviously you could still have the crazy shootout on the docks at the end.
Looks like $1 million. Looks fantastic.
Yeah. What about you? What's your idea of a remake?
Just come out like, well, just make it better, tighten everything up. Okay, so that's not fair. Let's get our hands dirty. I think you could version A, follow the Dennis Dunn character, the undercover cop, and they're your main focus. So they're caught in between these two. You got this captain who's a real dick, like over his shoulder, like, we're gonna put you in. But then he starts to sympathize with Joey and his side once he realizes all the things they're doing for their community, and he's split there. Or follow Tracy's reporter. And maybe at first she's doing it for like just a little bit more to advance her career stuff. And then she ends up discovering, oh my gosh, I actually want to help the community. And I think having somebody stuck between these two different like extreme personalities, they would almost be doing the detective work for the audience to flesh those characters out. So maybe even like if she's the reporter, she could discover about his Vietnam background. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you were kept as a POW for like a month. Or if it's the undercover cop, maybe they're working late one night. They're doing the wiretap and the nuns have gone to sleep. And the undercover cop's doing the translation for him. And while there's some downtime, all of a sudden Stanley tells him some fact about Vietnam. Man, when I was over there, I can't believe this happened. It's just like a little quiet, like some bonding time where you get to know him a little better. Yeah. And then not everything's on their shoulders. And also, again, Rourke does a good job here. Rourke walks away unscathed. He's fine. I would like in our remake, I would love him to be a little bit older, because I think that would give you your general. If you're playing up the war aspect of this, he's the older general. And I think the May to December romance with the reporter, I think, has more weight if he's an older guy who's having a midlife crisis.
I think that's great too. I love both those ideas, following either the reporter or the undercover cop. Like I said, I perked up once they mentioned the undercover cop, and they were pushing back. Like, his two closest police cohorts were against it. That already is, you're telling the audience there's going to be some drama in this decision. So when that happened and he goes to get him, and he doesn't look like a typical cop, he's got glasses on, he looks a little nerdy. I'm just like, oh man, I'm going to love where this film goes. And then you hardly see him until there's that moment where he confesses he doesn't, well, not even confesses, he just pushes back that he doesn't want to go undercover in Joey's restaurant because he thinks he's going to get killed. And then he gets brutally killed. So for me, it just felt wasted, because it's such a cool little storyline you could have explored more.
I know it's unfortunate. Again, I'm not trying to dump on anybody. I think because the reporter storyline does not work the way they intended, we're burning valuable time on that one when I'd rather give time back to Joey or back to the undercover cop. And look, if it was working, we wouldn't be complaining. But I think it's just where there's time spent where you're just like, okay. And then like that's taking away from stuff that we would like to see a little bit more of.
Yeah, but again, I will say I would happily watch this film again as is.
No, I think it's a good, flawed flick. Okay, heart of the film.
Grand ambition without patience causes all sorts of chaos. You see it from Stanley, you see it from Joey. They both have grand plans and don't care who it affects along the way, and they both end up paying a price. Although Stanley kind of gets away with it.
No, I like that. Well put. Well put. I was going to just say, bucking the system on either side of the law has ramifications. MVP.
Oh, come on, man. It's John Lone as Joey Ty.
So good.
He's so good. He's so smooth on screen. You believe he's a refined gangster you could trust with some help in the neighborhood, but he could also strike like a snake. He's awesome. Again, I was so excited to like check out more of his stuff. I've seen The Shadow. He's in that. Like you mentioned, he's in The Last Emperor. He's also in Rush Hour 2. And I want to reiterate, this film was nominated for 5 Razzies. He was nominated for a Golden Globe for this role. That's awesome.
Yep. Well put. Also, Kaiju Cinema, number 3 on their top 10 best films of 1986.
Okay.
I love the French, man. That's great. No, I agree. I'll just say one moment of his that we had not mentioned yet is after his trip overseas where he kills a rival, like triad member, he comes back and the Tracy, the reporter, is asking about it. And she goes, "Do you know White Powder Ma?" And he just makes a face like, "Do I know White Powder Ma?" He doesn't even answer her. And like he goes to, and I'm like, it's such a natural little bit of acting. And I'm like, nah, that was good, man. Like, so no, he is charismatic as hell here.
Yeah, he's so good. He's well worth watching this film for.
All right, underrated element.
My underrated element is the cinematography by Alex Thompson. This is a beautiful film. It is gorgeous.
And I'll say, compared to some of the other crime films we mentioned earlier, I think a lot of those I would classify as like cool and slick. And to me, this one is warm and gritty. It's got a very different feel than a lot of other 80s crime films.
But gritty in a beautiful way, which sounds like it's like an oxymoron, but it's gorgeous.
Well, I think that's the Cimino, for good or for ill. He has a way with violence. Violence is ugly. It's terrible, but he can shoot it in a beautiful way, like you just said. I would go Raymond J. Barry as Lou, who's the police officer who is Stanley's superior, and also they're old friends. And I think they have one of the more interesting relationships in the entire movie, where it's they're old friends and he's happy for his friend to get this promotion that he has, but then like Stanley is way overreaching, so then that creates like professional issues. And then because they've been friends for so long, he knows Connie the wife, and when they're having marriage issues, he's trying to coach him a little bit, and when she gets killed, he's trying to like help. So they've got an antagonist relationship, but sometimes like they're back to being friends again. And to me, that feels incredibly lived in for like a guy who's like on the bill 5th, 6th, 7th, I don't even know where I'd put him. Every scene he's in, I 100% buy him in the relationship.
Absolutely. Their relationship feels like a real relationship. Like it's that brotherly love and hate, right? That they have with each other. But you can tell that it's mainly love as much as you can with a brother.
And after the hit at the house where the wife is killed and the guy gets his head blown off and the car crashes, like Stanley just enraged is trying to pull the body out of the burning car just to get some sort of evidence, just enraged to get something on the people who just committed this act. And Lou, I guess, lives nearby. They have not established that, but he comes running up ready for action. He heard like gunshots and
so cool.
Yeah. And when Stanley goes to get in the car, he's freaked out that his friend is going into like this flaming car, and he's it's like these Stanley, that's like real acting. He sounds like legit concerned that Mickey Rourke's character is going into there. So it's like, man, he is selling the hell out of this.
Like, I wonder if that wasn't scripted.
It is so, Andreas, it is so good. I too was wondering if that was not a scripted moment. It
is so good. Yeah. And just that image of like Stanley does pull the body out of the car and then his face is just covered in this dark ash and soot. It was a cool scene for sure.
All right. Favorite scene.
There's a moment where Stanley rushes into a club to confront Joey, and he grabs him and manhandles him to the bathroom. He looks for an empty stall and they're all taken, mainly with people doing blow. It did make me laugh, but then shit got real when 3 women start blasting away and then take off, leading to a chase through the club, then through a boxing gym, and finally ending in the street where there's a great shot where one of the women is kind of ping-ponged between 2 cabs before being shot by Stanley. I just love that we see one shot of the 3 women when Stanley first rushes into the club, and you just think they're just casual club goers reacting to him, but then it gets revealed that they are some sort of added security that Joey has. I loved that scene. It's a super cool element that doesn't need to be over explained, and just the way that the action in that scene and the chase, the way it was shot, is awesome.
Well, drum roll. That's my favorite scene too. I think it's great. I think there's other, like the assault on the house. There's a restaurant shootout. There's something about that one where the visuals of, again, him pushing these stalls open and these people in there, and then he's in the total power position because he's beating the crap out of Joey. But then on a dime, he's getting shot at, and he gets shot in the neck. Rizzo, who lives, gets shot in the stomach. Like, who's in the power position totally changes. And then now you're thrust in this foot chase through there. I thought that was probably the most electric kind of sequence of the film.
It's such a cool scene. I do want to highlight, I mean, we mentioned it before, but the Joey going to the village in Thailand with that epic entrance, and he's there to renegotiate their drug deal, but the general won't go against the main leader, because the main leader, or excuse me, the general says, I don't want to go against White Powder Ma. I want to keep our arrangement as is. And then Joey says, tell him yourself, general. And then he pulls out White Powder Ma's head and drops it on the table. It's such a badass moment from like a very calm, cool, and collected gangster, but it shows how dangerous he can be.
Oh, on that gangster, underrated element, his bodyguard.
Oh, dude, yes.
The guy doesn't have a ton to do. The dude is not in a ton of the movie, but feels like a lived-in performance. Feels like they've been they're tight, and love how they're dispatched from the film.
Yeah, how they're dispatched. That's a good way of telling it.
Okay, favorite shot.
So my favorite shot is in Tracy's apartment that we mentioned earlier. There's one shot after she and Stanley are together and she finally says, I love you, and he doesn't say it back. She walks through her apartment that has this amazing panorama view of Manhattan. She's in silhouette. It's early morning. You can see the city for miles, and everything in her apartment is blue. And it's such a gorgeous shot. There are a couple other shots I want to talk about, but I don't want to step on yours. So what's yours?
I'd say during the shootout at the end in the yard, the train behind Joey. Like it just look. I mean, I've never seen a shootout that look quite like that before, and also like what a great way to kind of end this emotional thing with them having this shootout. The whole movie looks great, and I think they, you hope it's going to end with like a slam dunk, and I think they do it there.
Yeah, that is a beautiful shot too. There's also one shot I wanted to call out there. It's when after both our favorite scenes, it's when Stanley is standing over the dying woman shooter laying in the street with there's this amazing, I guess, is it a profile shot? It just, where the street just goes and connects almost like a V at the end of the horizon, right? And you see this amazing, cool building in the background, and the way he's just standing over her, it honestly looked like a painting. You have cabs that are parked there, and the police are rolling up in their cars. It was so cool. And then one other shot I want to talk about. There's one moment in the film where Tracy is giving a report on the recent police bus, and she's mentioning that it's all thanks to Captain Stanley White. We cut to Stanley sitting in his car. He's just smiling and nodding. Do you remember this point?
Yes. Yeah.
It honestly reminded me of that gif of Jack Nicholson who's doing that crazy nod from The Departed. Yeah. He just has this nod like this. I just wanted to call that out because it made me laugh.
Who is having the most fun?
I think Oliver Stone writing this had the most fun, to be honest. Yeah.
I love that. I love that answer.
But I think also Mickey Rourke was having a blast.
Rourke was on there. He gets put through the ringer, but like him getting to be like a jerk for a large portion, that must have been a good time. I went with Fan Mai Sheng as White Powder Ma, who comes into the film and he thinks he knows it all. He thinks he's turning the screws to Joey, and yes, he ends up decapitated. But we never see that. So the actor's having a great day. He comes in the scene. He gets to kind of like be really sarcastic. And that's the last we see him until we see his head later on. So I think he had fun with his scene.
That's a great answer. Can't argue against that.
Okay, what scene would you show to someone to hook them?
I never want to go with the opening scene, but it's the opening scene with the attack on the main Chinese gang leader as the parade is going on. It just sets the stage for what kind of movie you're getting into. I know it's a lame answer, but honestly, that's what I would want to show, because I feel like a lot of the other sort of scenes that might hook you give a lot away.
I'd go with the restaurant shootout, which is the picture behind you. I feel like that, other than the opening kind of like killing, that's when the movie really starts to like hit the ground, like, oh shoot, like things are starting to change. And I think it just shows how like ruthless the violence of this is. Not to say the earlier killing isn't, but like just like innocent people are getting like hit. It's a very messy, shootout. And I feel like you'd want to know more kind of coming out of that.
No, that's a good scene to pick.
T-shirt quote.
All young men want power. That's what it means to be young. Said by the Italian mafia boss.
I like that little scene too. I I like the mafia boss is racist to black people, but willing to do business with the Chinese.
And
like,
Puerto Ricans. He calls out Puerter Ricans.
I think I was going to say one of the alternate titles for this movie would be Avenue Q's Everyone's a Little Bit Racist, but everyone's a lot of bit racist in Dragons. So no, that good little scene, and that's a good little quote too.
It is a good little scene, but I do wish that conflict was built up a little bit more too, that we saw more of that conflict.
Okay, well, on that, it seems like Joey's mission makes sense. The things I mentioned earlier, like I need to like smooth over the cops, I need to talk to the Italians, I need to do business overseas. But I feel like each one of those could have been built up more, or maybe you could have lost one. Maybe like lose the trip over. Like, look, the trip overseas is awesome. This is why it's tough. But if you lost the trip overseas, you could concentrate more on the conflict with the Italians, or just mention the Italians and concentrate more on the conflict overseas. Instead, we do it all. So glass half full. That's all cool stuff, but you could have drawn any of those out a little bit.
Agreed.
I would go for, and I know it sounds cheesy, but again, I think they're acting it well. His friend on the force goes, "You care too much, Stanley." And he goes, "How can anybody care too much?"
Just that on the t-shirt. I mean, it works with Year of the Dragon.
Well, both of them.
Oh, nice.
You get the setup, and then you get like Mickey Rourke's face. Like, how can anybody?
One quote I did want to say: "I didn't buy this job at Macy's. You gave it to me." That's a good line. I don't care. I was like, man, I'm going to write that down as my t-shirt quote. But then that other quote came, and I had to go with that.
You should use that at work.
I will.
Tough day.
Whenever anyone pisses me off.
Are there any Oscars you would give this?
Absolutely. Hands down, cinematographer Alex Thompson. It's a beautiful looking film and shows you how gorgeous shooting on film can really be. They also did Executive Decision, Cliffhanger, Excalibur, Labyrinth, The Keep, Legend, and Demolition Man.
A hell of a resume.
Right? And all those films look amazing.
Yeah, The Keep, even if it's not a perfect film, lot to like about it. It looks great. So, okay, best squibs. Squibs, baby. People get shot in the face. People get shot in the neck. Heads getting blown off. People get shot in the hand. I mean, just like, this is a squib-friendly movie. Best hat acting, Mickey Rourke.
Nice.
Hit with that hat. Best car explosion. It's just like, oh my.
That
and best
trifecta.
supporting actor, John Love.
Nice. He's so good.
And we always wrap up with our crew shout out.
I want to shout out, because I already shouted out the cinematographer, I did want to shout out the chief lighting technician, Roy Larner, because the lighting in the cinematography was fantastic. They also worked on The Elephant Man and Dune for David Lynch, Return to Oz, and Labyrinth.
Another good resume. I'm going with John Caglione Jr., who did the special effects makeup for all the people who got shot with those wonderful squibs.
For all the squibs. I love it.
All right, well, these are fun. And again, look, if you haven't seen it and you like crime flicks, absolutely check this out. Look, it's not Heat. It's not as
But it
polished
could have been. It could have been.
Wait, we'll get it there. Off mic, we'll get it there. It's No the Deer Hunter. But I do think this is a good film. I would put this in the good category. For me, Heaven's Gate, the look of it is awesome. The scope of it is awesome. Absolutely, if you're a film lover, go see Heaven's Gate. That's a story for another podcast. I think this is a better movie. I am more interested in the characters of this movie than I am of Heaven's Gate. Heaven's Gate, the cinematography, the set design, the costumes, all that. I find what is happening in this movie more interesting than Heaven's Gate, if that's my hot take of this episode. I don't know what Michael Cimino's career would have looked like if this had taken off. He did a handful of movies after this. Things, they got tighter and tighter from here. Maybe kind of like the fight got beat out of him because the budgets weren't there and the studios weren't behind him. But he was an interesting filmmaker, and I wish we had gotten more from him. But, maybe he burned, twice as bright and half as long. It's just one of those things. But just too bad. He always delivered an interesting flick. This was interesting. I wish we had seen more from him. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Reeldemers. If you enjoyed what you heard, please subscribe by leaving a like, subscribe, or review on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on. You can find us on Blue Sky, Instagram, and YouTube. If you want to reach out and send us a comment, you can email us at reeldemers@gmail.com. Our music is by Adolfo Delanoy. You can check him out at Instagram at Adolfo Delanoy. Thanks again, everybody. Take care.